The board will receive and acknowledge comments, but will not engage in a dialogue with the speaker because of the set agenda of the meeting. And the remarks are limited to 3 minutes. Jennifer Filter, come to the podium, please. Tell us your name and
Yes, hello. My name is Jennifer Filter. I'm a resident of Linn-Mar District, um, and I'm here today to represent taxpayers of the Linn-Mar District. We live in a very average priced home in today's market and pay nearly $200 a month in our property tax money that goes, when I look at our property tax bill, about $200 a month of it goes to Linn-Mar. For us as a single income family, that's a lot of money. And the property taxes feel really burdensome. So I'm here today as a taxpayer to ask for the Linn-Mar School District to operate with fiscal responsibility, to spend money on only basic necessities such as curriculum, basic building maintenance, and teacher salary. I'm asking that the Linn-Mar School District has clear transparency when money is spent on wants, not necessarily needs. And I'm asking that taxpayer money only go to basic needs for the district. I believe that taxpayers should have more of a choice on what we pay and how that money is spent. So I'm asking that you please ease the burden on taxpayers in this hard time of inflation, so that will help ease the difficulties of family life. And that is what I would like to share. I know it's not a dialogue, so I'm sharing what I think, so I feel like that's really important. Thank you.
thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
I do need to leave because I have to get my daughter to evening activities, so I cannot stay, but thank you.
Okay, now we move on to 400. Any mission moments that we might have? That's a new one for you, Laura.
I'll just share. I watched on the last one, even though I was ill. I did stream it from my phone like the old days. Um, and I have one if I can kick us off. I went to volunteer orientation this year um, at Indian Creek, and I recall in years past, at the beginning of the year, school year, there'd be like this half sheet of paper for people who wanted to volunteer to like fill out, check the box, and then like you'd get scheduled for an orientation session. And it seemed like slightly different this year because it was like, oh, come to an orientation session. And then at the orientation session is when we filled out a lot of the paperwork. And that small change, I think, at least for me, somebody like it made it so much easier to get engaged. So I just wanted to give kudos to, Angela Burke, who's I don't know her exact title, but she's like the volunteer queen of Linn-Mar. Um, because I hope we see an uptick in the number of volunteers coming in. It was a wonderful presentation. Um, so that is my highlight, my mission moment that I'd like to share. Thanks, Barry.
Okay, thank you.
I got one. So I've been to 2 football games, a track, a cross country field, a cross country race, and there's another activity I can't remember. But at the one of the recent football games that I went to, I specifically went over and sat in the visitor sideline for a little bit, just to get perspective of what it looks like. Because sometimes when you're in the crowd, you don't appreciate the crowd for as much as it is. And I heard a couple comments. First was, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how nice of a facility this is." And these are from visitors. And I also saw the sheer volume of fans at the stands, and it, it it allowed me just to step back for a minute and remind myself that years ago, voters and the board made investments in the future, knowing that we were going to have these big needs for community gathering, for the athletes, for students, and that paid off as expected, as it always does. And that it's important that we have these facilities like what we did, because it was getting used. The cheering was so loud from the Linn-Mar side. it was impressive. So there you go.
I'm going to piggyback off of Justin's. I went out to the tennis courts this weekend and the new ones, and they were full, not with our students. And so when we talk about making decisions for the whole community, they were full of community members, people that are my age, people that are older than me, probably younger than me. I didn't ID everybody, but it was full of community members playing tennis on a weekend and just enjoying our facilities, which are, when they're not used by our teams, open to the community to use. I thought that was a really nice visual to just kind of see the community embracing that new space.
Just a really quick shout out to all of the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders last week that received academic letters. We had a nice ceremony for that and was really excited to see how many students were recognized for their hard academic work.
That was going to be my shout out.
Oh,
A
I'm
thousand,
sorry.
1,050 students in our high school were honor students. So kind of cool from the past year. Yep. All good? Okay. Britt, Marion City Council.
Yeah, it was an exciting meeting. Let's see. They approved our homecoming parade. So if you need to mark your calendar to see the parade, it is September 25th, and we have city approval to do that. The permits are all in place. So it should be a good time. Give them grace because they'll be using the north parking lot for staging, which is going to be different than previous years with construction. So might be a little chaotic at the beginning, but I have full confidence they'll get it figured out. There's going to be some rezoning from business to single family homes off of East Post Road. It may or may not be on the line of our district, or it may be Marion Independent, but I didn't look it up. I'm just sharing. So it's near the Dollar General. So it's like right. I think we might be the south side of East Post or something. I'm sharing it anyway. And then there was land annexed for housing north of Lau Park that connects to the land that we own off of 10th. So there'll be more homes going in there as well. That was about it.
Okay. Questions for Britt? Thank you. Policy Committee met this afternoon. Melissa wants to give a summary.
Okay, so we reviewed a couple different things. The first was social media policy. We went back to the discussions from our last board meeting, and uh, thank you for pointing out that we had missed something. We missed a very important word in our policy, and the word was not. And so when that was getting transferred over from the policy, the policy from IASB, one of the words was missed. And so it drastically changes the meaning of that policy. And I'm looking furiously to find. So what changed in that, and this will come to us for the next meeting, but changes from to any postings by board members about district related matters on their individual social media accounts shall not be considered official action of the district, which then means that um, they would be able to post on their social media. They just won't be posting on behalf of the district. So the reason that it was reading the way that it, or it was being interpreted by some as the way that it was because we didn't have that very important word in there. So we are also looking at adding one sentence to that after some additional discussion just around having a statement on any accounts that are owned by a board member that just clarifies that those would be um, that they're not official board statements or that they're not official thoughts and opinions of the board, and that they're they're representing individual personal opinions. And then we discussed a little bit of the chronic absenteeism and truancy. Decided that we're going to continue to just monitor at this point because there's just so much continuing to ebb and flow at the state level, and so at this point we're continuing to monitor. We're not ready to move that forward.
Can I jump in?
On that?
Yeah.
And it's less about whatever changes coming from the new guidance. But I've had a lot of questions around that, and I went through over the weekend and read not the policy because I read the policy, but the FAQ section on our website. And I think the biggest hang up that I'm hearing about is the medical excused absences versus the unexcused and the requirement of a doctor's note.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say that that is a barrier for families. If my kid wakes up with a fever, I'm not going to take him to the doctor unless it's a very high fever. Or if it's just a cold, I'm not going to take him to the doctor. And there are families, I'm just not going to do it because I know that if he sleeps it off, he's probably going to be fine.
Yeah.
There are families that can't afford a copay every time their
Mhm.
kid has a sniffly nose. And the way that the law and then our policy following that law stipulates that you have to have a note every single time. I think that that's something that we need to communicate more with families about how that was going to work, because it's very concerning for a lot of families who, like, I totally get the vacation one and I get like all of the appointments, that stuff is fine, but going to the doctor every time you have a runny nose is going to be a barrier for families.
Amy, do you want to speak to that?
I do. Thank you, Melissa. So that is one that we're watching and monitoring. As the state came out with their guidance in August, they were super helpful in the fact that they offered a lot of guidance around what should be considered students absent versus student present, and then as far as absent, those that we should consider exempt from truancy laws, and that were non-exempt. And why I said they did us so much of a favor is I do believe that now more than ever, it will provide consistency or more of an apples to apples comparison as it relates to attendance across the state of Iowa. Now, having said that, there were a few areas within that guidance that allowed you to have locally determined decisions. So, as Associate Superintendent Weir met on and off all summer long with metro area schools to work on the attendance guidance, that was absent from this Department of Ed guidance. So, we are continuing to monitor how other school districts are looking at those locally determined policies to know how in line are we with other practices that we see happening in the area? What does our county attorney expect us to consider as far as absences? If you remember, the policy says that at 10% of our absences, we are contacting our parents with a letter. At 15%, we're asking for an engagement meeting. And then at 20% is the threshold that we would be connecting them back with the county attorney. So the medical one is one area. There were 5 locally determined or areas for local decisions. 4 of those 5, I can tell you, 4 of those 5 areas, I can tell you, we are lockstep with all, the surrounding districts that we can have continued to work with. The medical piece has been a challenge for us to think through. So right now, our policy says that unless families provide us with a doctor's note or are excused by the school, maybe the nurses sent them home or they've gone in, the school nurse is like, yep, not today. We are right now saying that that's non-exempt. I can tell you different school districts are applying that differently. Um, at a recent Grantwood AEA superintendent's meeting, we heard from the Iowa Department of Ed school improvement consultant that more attendance guidance is to come out. So I'm not suggesting they're going to offer us an opinion on that particular piece, but possibly. When I think of the threshold at 10 and 15 and 20%, I think the thing that we're trying to weigh is the heart and kind of the underlying reason that we see the legislature and all the discussion in the nation around chronic absenteeism. Because coming out of COVID, we know our kids aren't showing up to school like they had been in the past. And so, on one hand, we do see that this is more of a press with around absenteeism than we've ever seen before, and um, I think we need to watch how this plays out. I get that also because now vacations and things are being coded that you could quickly cobble together a few absences that might get you that 10%, not necessarily getting us to that 20%. So to the families that have students that are going to be, kiddos sick here and there, they're not going to quickly escalate to the level where that's going to happen. But if you've got that combined with some other things, you are going to get to that threshold pretty closely. So I would say what we have right now, we're going to continue to monitor and see how it plays out. We'll see if we get additional guidance or what happens, but that's the position that we've taken thus far.
I just want to clarify because I guess I misunderstood. I thought that the medical exemption or non-exemption was state law, not up to us to determine what we're excusing and what we're not. So we're choosing to say you have to have a doctor's note no matter what.
So the code reads legitimate medical reasons, and then from there it gets differentiated between whether they've had a hospitalization or calling in ill or calling other family members in ill. Where's Nathan? Nathan, would you add anything to that discussion? How that gets nuanced in that medical code?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up like we've talked about. And so legitimate medical reason would be that doctor's note. But we've also, and we've been doing this since COVID, extended that any time our nurses are available can see a kid as well if families are concerned about that, which, you know, if they've been sick and need an excuse, can't go to the doctor, the nurses could see them for that as well.
And
Another important thing that we talked about in the meeting was that part of this will come down to how the county attorney, we believe that that will be interpreted. So part of what we're waiting for is some guidance on how we believe that all of this will be interpreted, which will lead us to be able to make a better decision as to will we continue to require, will we not, because we just don't have that information yet. So we're erring on the side of caution right now, um, for everybody's safety, for the parents as well as for the district in terms of, um, that gives them that extra layer of safety if it gets to the point of the county attorney where they get to there and they've got that doctor's note. We know for sure that they would be covered. Whereas if they don't have the doctor's note, they may not be considered, uh, by the county attorneys. So we're just, there's a lot of unknowns yet because is all so new and we didn't, um, guidance hasn't come out yet for that.
I understand that, but I also think that you're going to create a situation where parents are scared of this now.
Yeah.
Like there are parents that are legitimately scared. They're counting up the days their kids were sick last year and saying we couldn't take them to the doctor every time. We're going to have parents that just send their kids to school sick because they're afraid they're going to be reported to the county attorney. I mean, this isn't black and white. So I would just ask that as this guidance continues to come in, that we have to take into consideration all of our family situations and understand that not every illness needs to go to the doctor, but still is an illness that we shouldn't be sending a kid to school for.
yeah, and we certainly agree with that.
I'd like just to add to this is, to me, intrusive. It is, just putting that out there. We are taking away a family's decision on what is in their best interest of their child medically. I think that you're crossing a line with HIPAA. I think that this is just a bit too much. I understand the why, and I understand that it's all a process. But as a family that struggled with mental wellness, who did not have a doctor's note, who cannot get into a doctor's office, you're now saying that for my child to stay home for a mental wellness day, I'm going to be unexcused, even though I know the wellness of my child and know that to send him to school or to send her to school might be life threatening or at the very least diminishing their wellness. I think that we've crossed a line in the we need everybody to get back to work. I understand that we are trying to set a pattern and from there we can locally make a decision. But not only is this a financial burden, we have crossed into, I feel, some very personal decision making by families. And if we've heard nothing in the last couple of years, do not diminish the mom and dad's, parents, grandparents, and caregivers' decision for the wellness of their own children. So I'm just throwing that out there. I think that we are going to get ourselves. I cannot imagine that information that you can say you had a doctor's appointment will not be challenged. That private information about a student that you should not know.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I was under the I thought I was understanding this to be this is the requirements of the law, not that we had leeway in how we were determining medical excuses. So I am in 100% agreement with Katie. This is intrusive and it's a step beyond what we should be doing. And the idea, I'm glad we have nurses. I love our nurses. They're important. But the idea that if my kid wakes up sick and I can't go to the doctor so I can take them to school and the nurse can decide.
Putting pressure on the nurse
Ew.
on top of it, yeah.
I'm not, no, if my kid is too sick to come to school, I'm not going to take them to school for the nurse to say they're too sick to come to school.
Justin, you got a comment?
I got just a couple questions for Amy real quick. In I've tried to read up on this, and there are a couple questions I still have. You said that you spoke with other districts about this. Does this apply to all districts or only all public districts? Do we know the answer to that?
Nathan is sharing with me that it's public.
Okay, so this is only applying to public. Um, I don't at all want to paint that the legislature did us any favors. Last year we heard that from the legislature directly that parents knew best, and now all of a sudden we're hearing from the legislature that the government knows best. I don't know which one it is. I'm getting a mixed message from the legislature. I think it's intentional, and I would ask our district to control what we can. We did just have a resident of the district come up and ask us to use our money wisely, and I think thinking about total household budgets, if every time that they have to go, that the student is sick, that they have to now go get a doctor's note and a copay, that's while that's not district spending, but is one way that we can help with that. Um, I also recognize that this is not an item that that at least any district that I've heard lobbied for last year.
It was slipped into the final budget bill. It wasn't a separate bill, so we didn't.
So,
cut
so
from it.
again, it comes back to this is not something that districts were asking for. So we can paint whatever message we want on it. It's not something that we asked for. It's not something that is giving our parents control over what's going on. And it does not apply to every single pupil in the area. So there is no reason that we should make ourselves look worse and have more students considered truant if otherwise. So I recognize that there's a policy committee and you guys are going to come up with what you think is best, but just please consider the whole picture.
Absolutely. And all the comments are really good. Now,
I,
Nathan made a comment. Oh, you got something to say?
I do. May I please? First, I'm going to say that I agree with Britt, Katie, and Justin's sentiments. From there, for now, this is the deal. And I don't want parents to feel paranoid while we are in this period of time where this is a very closely monitored thing. And I'm wondering, I know I've seen a little bit about notification, but just while we're on topic, can we have Amy, I'll start with you and you can defer if you'd like. Um, besides in Power School, I know this information is in Power School, but can we do more than just have it be in Power School to communicate with families where their students' attendance is sitting or absences are sitting? And also, the second part of that is come conference time, I'm afraid our teachers are going to be faced with some of those anxious or angry questions about their absences. And I don't think it's fair at all to make our teachers take that heat when they're just trying to talk about, those academic standards. So, how can we keep that off the teacher's plate? I think I communicated what I wanted to. Okay.
I think that starts with communication, right? I mean, I'm hoping that, through the communication that we're doing from the school district, when that's coming from the office staff, that is, a barrier and that we don't cross that boundary with our teaching staff. So I'm hoping, I don't think that's going to be a barrier. I'm not saying parents might not let their hair down when they're sitting across from the teacher. That could always happen, but it's, generally always absences, tardiness, that's coming straight from your office staff. So you do see the 10%, the 15%, the 20%
Mhm.
thresholds. Those are our keys. Like you said, you can go and check your child's attendance or tardies every day in Power School. I don't know if we've talked to our team about thresholds earlier than that. Nathan, can you help if we've asked buildings to do anything ahead of the 10%?
No. No, and remember, we're gonna, to Laura's question, we're gonna start that calling at the high school. So we will work with our attendance system and our school messenger to notify parents, in addition to what they can see in Power School, to make calls twice a day when students are marked absent. if we have not heard from that.
And that's just the high school level?
Just the high school for now, yeah. Phil and
Okay.
Phil's on Jerry's team, and IT, we've been working on getting that set up. So we're gonna start it at the high school and pilot that.
And Nathan, that's due to the sheer number of students, because at the other levels, we
Right.
would be making phone calls.
Everybody else will call from the office.
May I ask, during that phone call, so I don't have a teacher, I don't have a doctor's note, what I'm saying is you're still gonna call, I'm still gonna be home, I don't have a doctor's.
We're only going to call for the ones that we haven't received notification on. If you call us and say, "Oh, my kid's sick today," that would be marked by the attendance secretary, which would be another code that will not automatically call. So this would only be from people that we have not heard from,
So,
parents that we have not heard from.
so no call, no shows is what
Right.
essentially it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess I was just wondering if there was a way to automate some of that, like, your child has this many exempt absences and this many unexempt absences, um, or how we can that. And also, I just want to say that the FAQ document on the website doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated. Um, and I appreciate the continued effort to push that information out there because, as we know, this is getting a lot of attention. So I would like to end with thank you for doing that. Let's let's get more information to the parents about where they are, but hopefully we can um, loosen the reins on some of this.
I appreciate that we're in a transition. I just wanted on record that we have talked over and over again about mental wellness. And we just added stress. We've added a bunch of things because we want to communicate, but the families that often face a challenge like this are not looking for those sources or resources to figure out they're in crisis or they are just spiraling or they're stuck. So I appreciate the 2 calls a day because I think that that's going to be a personal attempt to say we care. And I think if it's addressed like that versus worried about a county attorney, because it is, we care about our students. But please note, this has caused great mental worriness for our district. And I know every district's going through it, but just I want our families who notice and who actually pay attention to these meetings that we are hearing your weariness and we are sorry that this was not our plan, but somehow we will muddle through. Um, anyway, I just think that we've added crisis that didn't need to be there.
I would say that the consensus is pretty unanimous on the policy committee as well, that that's the direction that we want to get to is, and it's just a matter of the timing. And unfortunately, that means that our families have to be in a little bit longer of limbo, which is frustrating for everybody. And so if there's any way that we can, I don't know that there's any good way to communicate that message of, we know you're in limbo and we know that this law sucks and we know that things might change, and so we're here to support you. Like, there, I don't know if there's any good way to say that other than just continue to reiterate that we are here to work with families. We are here to support you in these transitions. And if something comes up, please know that we're happy to answer any questions. We're happy to support you along this journey. Um, so
I appreciate all the comments. Well taken. Nathan made a comment this afternoon that when push comes to shove, he doesn't see the county attorney stepping up as strong as it sounds when it comes to illness. He thinks there'll be some leeway there a little bit. Is that correct? That's your feeling?
Yeah, we're still working with the county attorney's office, and Britt's right. This was passed late at night at the end of the session in the budget stuff. There was no hearing on it. We received notice 10 days before the school year started, which I know is not ideal. We had been looking for that to come. We want to work with families on this. I just want to make one clarification. We are not requiring doctor's notes. You do not have to take your son or daughter, child at school to the doctor. That is not a requirement. It is exempt from truancy if you provide a note. So that's a little bit different. We're not saying you have to when they're sick. We know kids are going to be sick. And obviously, that's why the statute and the law has been written into 10 and 15 and 20%. 20% of a grading period is a semester is 17 days. So they would have to be kept home by a parent for 17 days without any medical intervention, which I'm sure we would all think that seems like a lot. You'd probably want to get them checked out by some type of physician at some point. So again, you don't have to have that note, and we will work with the county attorney. We'll probably set a meeting with her. She's in the process of gathering everybody's policies, so we've shared that with her. The metro schools are sharing that with her. She's going to have to interpret the law then to determine the steps for truancy, which will be up to however the county attorneys have to do that. And I will just add one thing in this whole attendance thing. They did this because also county attorneys across the state were not prosecuting attendance cases. That has not been the case in our county. Linn County has been very supportive of working with us and working with families as well.
I want to just add, thank you for the burden that you're holding on this too. It's not something you had wished for. We just want students in school. I'm just going to reiterate, 17 days though is not even close to the waiting list that it will take to get a referral into a therapist, into a doctor, if it's a mental wellness concern. It is if you have a cough or a cold or a virus. So just throwing that in there, that students that are are dealing with severe depression, anxiety, the inability to even get out of bed, it can take a long time to get that figured out. And often the last thing the family wants to do is speak to the school. Having said that, the way that you clearly identified 17 days and a quarter, we would want the school to know that this family is struggling in some way. So I thank you. But I just wanted to hear, as much as we're nervous about this and hearing about it, as much as it's being talked in the homes, you as our cabinet and our support staff have had to deal with this head on. So thank you for your professionalism.
And just a note regarding that if there is somebody that is struggling with a longer term mental health issue, that there is the the ability to have a 504 accommodation that does, and I know that that takes time, but that does then, if that is something that we need to be able to put into place, I just want to make it known that that is something that we can start to work with them on while they're in that process. Um, and that would exempt them from any future, and I think I would assume it would go retroactive then as well. So if they go into their doctor's office and say, "Hey, I'm waiting to get into a therapist," or even within the school, um, so I know that there's no perfect options, but I think that there's a few things that are sort of in that living in that in between while we try to figure out the long term solutions to a law that just doesn't work for families.
Good comment. Thank you.
The
Bit more, yeah.
The very last thing that we talked about as a policy committee is the cell phone expectations. And the consensus from the policy committee. So essentially what happened was that the district went back and did a comprehensive survey of all of the buildings and what was currently happening. What was discovered was that at K through 4, the expectation is consistent and the consequences are consistent across all of the buildings, which is really great news. 5, 6, the same. 7, 8, the expectations are the same. There's slightly different consequences, and then 9 through 12, there's some discretion involved and allowed. And so the recommendation was, I guess the other thing that was discovered in the survey and the analysis was that um, overwhelmingly the principals were saying we are not seeing significant issues coming out of cell phone issue as a whole. And when they are happening, it's being dealt with either through a bullying policy or through a school disruptions policy or through one of the other policies that exist. And so the recommendation that we're bringing forward would be that this that the administrators go back and come up with looking at the things that were slightly inconsistent and getting everything consistent across the board for each level, getting that all into writing and then putting that into the student handbook, because every aspect that um, that seemed like it was a potential problem is covered in another policy somewhere. And so to have a standalone policy that was specifically this didn't seem to make the most sense. And we really didn't want to, for student safety issues, for parent access to their kids issues, for all of the reasons, we just felt like saying students can't have cell phones didn't really feel like a great option. And also, we didn't want to say that students can have phones whenever they want. Didn't feel like a great option. And so we wanted to be able to outline clear expectations that could be communicated to all parents universally in the same manner.
There, there are some schools that are telling us that they're banning cell phones. Well, actually, from K through 6, we are kind of banning them, even though it's still up to the principal and their decision, 7, 8, but then into the high school. So we really truly are not banning cell phones, but we have the same policy that other districts are having as well. So
And they're not necessarily banned, they're just not allowed to be used. They can be in their bags.
What I hear from you guys is that we're responding to the situation that we have.
Yes,
And,
exactly.
and that's good policy making. I've heard all the news stories from other districts that have gone for a wholesale, and without knowing the background, I'm sure that they did it for reasons that they have. Again, what I hear from you is that you've heard from our administrators and we're responding to our administrators hearing the real world data. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I also just want to affirm the work that DEI had this conversation for quite some time and came to many of the same conclusions that you're coming up with now. Want to again empower. We have an incredible administrative staff, and a lot of them had addressed this long before any of us even knew that it was an issue and took age appropriate steps. I would like to point out for a child receiving a phone call at the age of 6, there's not a lot of people on their phone list. So just it's a two-way thing. We monitor their school phones, but we also remind people your child is at school to do schoolwork. But we thanked each one of the administrators had really addressed this issue per building, but also it was the consistency and the ability to have a policy behind them when they said so. So thank you to DEI for doing that work. I had the privilege of listening to the different conversations, including a high school student who reminded us that for him, a cell phone is a tool in the classroom. It is a piece of his way he copes with school. And it wasn't an addiction, it wasn't a misuse, it is the way he thinks. So thank you for those policies.
And that was the other piece that was discussed, was that we continue to use cell phones for lots of different educational purposes. And yes, they've got their laptops, but there's also lots of other, Melissa shared about different adaptive technologies and applications that are being used to help them as they transition and be prepared to leave high school and go to college, and what things they might be able to use as tools as they're learning to be more independent. And so it's important for them to be able to learn to use the technology that we have available in our world, but use it within the parameters that we want to be able to have them have some guidelines around.
I just also wanted to appreciate the way you went about like assessing at K through 4, it's consistent. At this grade, it's consistent. To go about that, I have chatted with a few high school teachers over the last year or so. I don't have kids in high school, my disclaimer. But the summary that I got was that there is a lot of autonomy to the teachers, but it's working. And I appreciate consistency. And I also, just like in the previous discussion, you know, the schools didn't ask for an attendance policy. I would want to make sure that we're listening to the teachers, and whether they want or need a policy like this, so that we're not doing the same thing the in the previous example. Okay, so and I'm glad we're not kind of taking that fist on the table approach.
good comments. Thank you. That's all you have. Okay. Superintendent Portmeyer will report.
Thank you, President Buckholz. A few district honors and highlights today. Just a reminder that on September 19th, we have our Dine Out for Schools Day supported by the foundation. Naming of buildings highlights. So hopefully you've seen some conversation or social media push around this next topic. Renee Nelson, Executive Director of Communications, and Riley Seymour, Communications Assistant, spearheading a committee of 6 Linn-Mar High School students to help the district select names for the former Learning Resource Center and the new administration building. So congrats to those students. Also, Associate Principal Joe Niedert and Director of Teaching and Learning Mark Hutchinson for the high school are involved in that. So by the end of October, those students, along with Renee, will be at the board meeting to be recommending some names for those buildings. And we have a robotics highlight. The Linn-Mar High School robotics program was excited to be the recipient of a donation from the New Leader Manufacturing to cover parts and tools for the robotics program. So we appreciate that donation. One of you stole my thunder earlier about our honor students last week from the high school. So 1,050, that's pretty remarkable. Just a little bit about my meeting participation. We've attended cabinet meetings and one-to-one meetings with our cabinet members as we are doing the work of the district. Linn-Mar School Foundation held a meeting in the last couple of weeks. Met with 2 of our instructional coaches about a cognitive coaching training that's been an ongoing long time training that we've held in the district since the advent of the teacher leadership program. So it was interesting to be reminded about that history. I met with Laura Seifer from the Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance, and she shared with me things that potentially they could offer the district. Nathan and Melissa and I met recently with the new Iowa Department of Ed Special Education Director that's been assigned to Grantwood AEA as part of the new AEA legislation. John and I have met with OPN architects at our new administration building. And John and I visited the LRC to see all the new updates and how the building's looking there. Talked to Dr. Gustafson over at the high school. And last week we had a big Grantwood AEA Metro Area Superintendents meeting, learning session, and business. So a lot of the topics that we're talking about tonight are the same topics that we talk about with other superintendents. And that network is extremely important, especially as we navigate implementation of legislative changes. So that's always a great meeting. We've had a recent OPN steering committee with the new activity center as well. Renee, I wasn't able to get into this meeting, but I'll just give a shout out for some partnership work here. Renee met with Marion Superintendent and the City of Marion Communications Manager about the Marion Messenger. And 2 times during the year, you'll see some inserts that both Marion School District as well as our school district are going to go in and be able to reach all of our stakeholders that way. So as far as back to facilities, our Linn-Mar High School Extension, students are in the buildings during the day so that contractors are working after hours and the weekends to complete some of the painting and punch list items. Talked about punch list items just this morning. Opian and John have also walked that building to consider options for possible additional finish upgrades. So we're just kind of in the early stages of brainstorming what that might look like, and we would bring any of those recommendations to you if we want to move forward on those. Like I said, the steering committee met on September 4th to review 2 concepts with the new activities center. Both of the concepts include a field house addition to the southeast of the high school building, still connected, and a wrestling addition to the northeast. OPN will meet with local code officials next, and then we will all convene again on September 16th. And then after that, the package will go to a cost estimator. And then I imagine after that is likely end of October that we'll have that larger stakeholder committee of roughly about 40 people that we invited. We've seen consistently about 25 folks showing up to that meeting. So that's moving right along there. Performance venue, we've got lots of things going on. Still lots of digging, dirt moving out there. The big crane was out there last week. I saw they're drywalling the new restrooms. So that work's exciting. And then administration building, that's still, we're looking at substantial completion. I cannot believe September 24th is going to be here before we know it. So there's a lot of work going on in there still right now to get to the finish line. But after that, then is when the furniture is set to be delivered. So we've got shelving coming in. That's going to take a couple of weeks, and then the rest of the office furniture. So we're hoping that we can start with a staggered approach, much like we left the LRC in a staggered approach, starting mid-October for the new administration building. And then we'll have to be talking about hosting a not a groundbreaking ceremony, but a ceremony for ribbon cutting. There we go, to celebrate our acceptance of the building. Just a few highlights of things coming up. We've got, can you believe this? Secondary conferences or high school conferences on the 19th, homecoming parade on the 25th, professional development day on the 30th, and then we're into October. Thought I'd take any questions.
Were you going to mention vacancy?
We can do that now, or we can do that. Yep. And then I would like to announce that Board of Director Rachel Wall has submitted her resignation to President Buckholz and myself. So we appreciate Rachel's 7 years of service to the district. And at the end of the meeting today, President Buckholz will outline how we are going to appoint the next member of the board.
Okay. And then just a quick shout out to the construction folks. They were able to get all the people in and out of that auditorium handicap accessible and everything. It was kind of amazing, kind of the temporary ramp they put in and everything. So it worked out quite well.
And we need to give a big shout out to Andy Park and team for doing that.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. We're going to 701 first.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I don't like the button being way over there. Amy, how is the construction of the Performing Arts Center impacting the classrooms adjacent to that construction site?
Good question, Laura. I know Jeff and Andy have been highly involved with the activities that are happening to try to keep the noise down as much as possible. And we've really just kind of left it with Jeff. Like, let us know if it's intrusive and we'll see what we can do if there is a problem. Kind of one of those things, like, we're not going to fix something that's not a problem until it becomes a problem. We know it's out there, and I think Jeff's done some things to shift some classes around within that building too, knowing that the windows that are right adjacent to that, it is going to be noisier than normal.
So if teachers or anything are experiencing disruption or stress, they should be encouraged to reach out to Dr. Gustafson.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Questions? Anybody else? All good? 701 first reading of policy recommendation.
Motion to approve the first reading and policy recommendations as presented in Exhibit 701.1.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Justin. Questions, comments?
I just have an edit for the second reading on policy 204.1. When we're updating the address from 10th Street to Winslow Road, we should also be removing the name of the building because Learning Resource Center is not located on Winslow Road, and that could create confusion in reading the policy. So I think if we just take that out for the second reading and just list the address or put administrative building and be very generic.
Good comment. Okay, motion by Melissa, second by Justin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Motion carries. Fundraising request approvals.
Motion to approve the fundraising request as presented in Exhibit 702.1.
Second.
Motion by Laura, second by Britt. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to approve the open enrollment request as presented.
Second.
Motion by Britt, second by Laura. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we need to discuss the annual convention, ISB annual convention coming up, on who we're going to appoint as the delegate and how we're going to handle that. Is everybody going to be in attendance that they know of at this point?
Yes.
Cool. I would be very happy to be the delegate at this point. If we need a motion for that or whatever we need.
I think that makes good sense to me. Motion to appoint Barry Buckholz as delegate for ISB General Assembly.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Katie. Britt? Okay, thanks.
No, it was me. Katie. You were right there. Just me.
Was it you?
No, it's just
Okay.
me.
By Melissa,
Yeah,
second by
not
Katie.
just. It was Katie.
All in favor,
Justin.
say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry. I thought it was you. They just tried to mess with me.
Less words, quiet.
Motion to approve the consent agenda
Oh,
as presented.
r-
Oh, sorry.
I suppose we already went through that. Never mind.
Go for it.
Well, it's just now that we have a vacancy, do we need to hold a spot at the convention for potential extra?
There should be a reservation already made. Our names just aren't on them yet. So,
Question.
Flashback a year.
So you made a motion.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Laura. Questions?
for the consent agenda?
That's
Second.
correct. All in favor, say aye.
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 I
Opposed?
actually have a question before we, okay, sorry. The tennis courts. We're approving the final payment on that, and I just have a question. Over the summer, there were some issues with settling of one of the courts, and there were puddling and paint mismatches, and it just did not, it wasn't looking great. And then the company came back and fixed it, except that they didn't fix it. And I know that we were waiting on the final payment until it was officially fixed. And I know the coaches and the athletics department was very concerned about whether or not it would be fixed correctly in time before it gets cold for next season. So I guess before I say yes to this, I would like to know how that went. I went over there. It looks great, but there were people playing, so I couldn't walk around court. But is it still pooling water? Has that been fixed? If it does pool water again after we pass this final payment, what happens?
So it's not settling, it's just pooling, so it's not completely flat originally. They came back and fixed that, painted it. They thought it was all fine. We said, no, this still doesn't look right. We got a second opinion from another tennis court contractor, and he said it's the wrong color. So he said, but he goes, and it was after it rained. He said, as flat as this court is, he said he was very impressed with that work, but it was the wrong color. So contacted the original contractor. They came back out, painted it. Everything is to the plans and the specs and within the industry standards for construction of a tennis court. So we're good.
So if water does start pooling and puddling again, what happens?
We have a 2-year maintenance period.
Then I'm good to go.
Good questions. Good questions. So now we're ready to go. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we get to the board calendar and communications, and I think this is probably where we'll talk about the vacancy a little bit. We just did this recently, so we just remember once we have 30 days to post this, and we're open to applications from anybody that would like to apply for the board. It will be in the newspaper. How soon?
September 12th.
September 12th. Okay.
September 12th.
So that's when the 30-day window starts at that point. So, we've had to move some meetings around a little bit. You just look at the modification of the meeting schedule due to fit into that time as well. And so we'll wait to hear if anybody wants to apply or whoever is going to apply. Anybody have any questions or?
We're adjusting a board meeting as well.
Yeah.
Yep, and those applications will be due September 25th for anyone that's interested. They're due to John Galbraith by that point. So this Thursday, that publication should be in the Gazette. It will also be posted on our website. And again, folks have until September 25th to put their applications in.
And then what was the meeting that we were gonna?
So we're going to move the board meeting from October 14th to October 7th so that we can
Oh,
seat
that's
the
already
new
on.
board
Okay.
member
Due date.
within 30 days of that publication.
And just to give more information to those listening who might be interested, this appointment term would end in November
A year from November.
2025.
Correct.
Okay.
Just for 1 year. Yeah.
So the October 7th meeting is taking the place of the
October 14th.
October 14th. Okay.
So the packets are available for download on the website.
They will be on the 12th. Yep.
So I would just like to thank Rachel. It's 7 years is a long time to serve.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Through some interesting times, absolutely.
Yeah. Been a hard 7 years.
Couple comments this week, of course, is a board visit. And we have Laura's taking care of the city council. We have a city council meeting on October 3rd. Any volunteers? I can do that. October 17th, city council meeting.
I'll take it.
And kind of for me, a fun time is the American Reads Day. So somebody will reach out to us to ask us who wants to read. That's a fun time. You can read as many schools as you like. So
Who should we
I'm hoping
contact
for
for
it.
that?
Yeah.
The volunteer. There's someone that runs the program and they usually
Okay.
reach
they'll
out
reach out
to
to us. Yep.
the whole board.
Okay.
Or maybe it's by building. Actually, it's by building. There's a person that coordinates each building. And as I remember, I said yes to one building and then got 2 more building requests for the same time. So it's by building. So just reach out to the building you want to volunteer in.
Okay.
I was very, very, very excited that I might be able to do this. And then my job said that I had to go to headquarters the days around this. And so I am very disappointed that I will not be able to participate this year. I'll make a recording if anybody wants to.
Well, most of us don't even really know what you do. The headquarters in some outer space area.
Sounds so fancy.
It's
Sounds like Superman.
I know it's to California, which I think most people be like, "Ooh, California," but I'd rather read to kids. So sorry, work.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the board?
I think in light of uh, the open position on the board and the fact that Rachel was a policy committee member, that someone, third member, should fill that space until November.
I
So-
don't think we have any meetings scheduled between now and November. I think our next one is scheduled in December.
December.
Okay, well then it's a moot point.
Yeah.
I was just
But
thinking
good,
if
but
all,
good
yeah.
question.
it's
Yeah.
just, it should be 3 people. So if there's another meeting that pops up,
Mhm.
could we maybe decide if a meeting, emergency policy meeting happens to need to happen?
Well,
Would someone be willing to fill in until November?
And you don't have to make that decision tonight, but you know, we'll give you a couple weeks if you want to decide that. So
I would throw my name in the hat, and while we're at it, I'm also noticing that that also creates a vacancy on the Medco Community Promise Advisory Committee.
I don't know how often they meet, but yeah, it does.
So I just
And
wanted to
SiAC
bring that
as well,
up.
Yep.
Yeah, and science.
which is meeting. SiAC is meeting September 26th. So if there's a member that wants to come to that. Hmm?
I'll be there.
SiAC,
Well, you're already on the committee. You and me, we need a third.
got it under control.
Can I go?
You want to go to SiAC?
Yes.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
And then if Laura, if an emergency policy thing pops up, I am fine with Laura stepping in if everyone else is. Justin and Katie, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'll just take Barry's direction if that's how you want to run it.
Cool. Cool. Good.
Thank you.
Good discussion.
Okay.
Mary, since those two are considered the required board committees, do we need to take a vote on that?
Yes.
Well, if we took a,
I'm
It's not on the
it's not on
agenda.
the agenda
How
though.
about if we bring that back in 2 weeks?
Perfect.
That'd be good. Perfect. Thanks, John.
Good call.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6 p.m.
Second.
Motion by Brett, second by Katie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good meeting, everyone.